In the incredibly gigantic complexity of The Lord of the Rings, written by John Ronald Reuel Tolkien, directed by Peter Jackson, we definitely find various archetypes of characters that certainly play or have played a big role in the storytelling area. Aragorn II, with a certain resemblance to a classic hero, as known from works such as Beowulf or Superman. The wise old mentor who cares about the main characters and instills wisdom and cunning in them is very recognizable in Gandalf, only that Tolkien did in fact write Gandalf with a certain strive too, writing him sometimes quirky and hysterical, an interesting reversal to the more calm and collected archetype. However, today I would like to talk about another phenomenon that emerges from a deeper analysis of The Lord of the Rings. Boromir II, soldier of Gondor, son of the mighty steward Denethor II, and rightful heir, written as a tragic hero, a character who of his own accord has wrong paths and aims, and thereby fails. To what extent this coincides with Boromir, I will deal with today. As soon as we meet Boromir at Elrond's council for the first time, he seems definitely determined. He is ready to achieve his goal with a lot of focus, the salvation of his homeland. The first errors of this thinking are already shown to him when he has rather radical opinions or even tries desperately to get the One Ring in his hands. The big error is simply a desperate attempt to save his homeland from certain doom. Combined with the internal temptation, the sheer power of the One Ring, its doom is preordained. Before that, however, something about the actual history of this character type. The tragic hero came about in Greek antiquity, when apparently flawless men in Greek plays fell into misfortune through their own fault. However, Tolkien, the author of The Lord of the Rings, was rather averse to the language of that culture. He was more interested in the Germanic languages, such as German or Danish. Implementing a tragic hero in his story was rather atypical. The failure of Boromir obviously seems very tragic, in contrast to the almost joyful sacrifice, which is and still is to be found in the Nordic concept of war. After this little historical, as well as linguistic and literary excursion, we now return to the plot and its tragedy. Because in Boromir, as he is more and more influenced by the ring and drawn under its spell in the course of the story, a great blindness spreads. Blindness to his own moral ideas. Blindness to the ring's influence. When the companions take a break at the Falls of Rauros, the mood changes. Boromir seeks out Frodo, the ring-bearer, to convince him of his ideals, his plan. Frodo flees from Boromir, and he all of a sudden recognizes the flaw of his thinking, from fortune to misfortune. It's too late now to undo what he's done. And even with the attempt to make amends when he desperately calls for Frodo, the current situation does not change. Not yet. For some redemption can probably be seen in the final heroic battle, in which Boromir gives his life. Nonetheless, Boromir dies a man who caused much damage and displeasure. Through him, the bond of the community has been weakened, and he can also be blamed for breaking the camaraderie when Frodo makes the decision that he has to travel on alone. This claim was persuaded by the failure of Boromir, and despite everything, a morally good intention can also be recorded here. Pity is aroused in us, as is fear, just as Aristotle defined it in his ancient writings. I think that the interesting variety of character types in the arts is getting far too little praise. A vast hodgepodge of character modalities each with their own uniqueness and moral mindsets. And so, we should focus more on developing these types and mixing them up to create webs of diverse characters.